Hey everybody, the Real Behemoth here, back in with another video for Heroes of History. Today we are going to be jumping into our second video of the new player guide. We're going to be talking about heroes, hero types, and skill types. So, regarding heroes, I want every single person to realize that every single hero has some use. Now how much use? That's to be determined, but every single hero has use regardless of stars. So yes, of course, 5 stars are the most rare. You've got 4 stars, 3 stars, and 2 stars. A lot of these 2 stars still absolutely have use in this game, especially obviously in early and mid game, but some of them even still have use in end game content. So, jumping into each hero type role. The first role we've got is defenders. Defenders charge into the breach and protect their allies. They're strong against campaign, arena, and treasure hunt, and they're weak against Tesla storms. Well, it very clearly lays this out for you. It's weak against Tesla storms because they don't do a lot of damage. They're there to tank, they're there to protect your team, and they're there to take damage. So, regarding the defenders, we have 11 total defenders in the game. 3 are 2 stars, 3 are 3 stars. We've got 1 4-star and 4 5 stars. So why are defenders important? Well, defenders are you're typically going to have 1 per team, and they're going to be your primary damage taker. So you want them in the front line typically, and in the back line in some cases, especially if they have a taunt type skill. But defenders are a very important role, and you're typically going to use at least 1 per team. Now, moving on to the second hero type, we've got our single strikers. Single strikers deal large amount of damage to single targets. They excel against enemy heroes. It's strong against enemy heroes in campaign, arena, and treasure hunt, and in Tesla storms. Weak against large squads in campaign and treasure hunt. So these are primarily going to be your, PvP type of heroes. They're going to be your Tesla heroes, and they're going to be your campaign and treasure hunt heroes in those boss fights. So if you take a look at some of their abilities, they're going to deal massive damage to single target enemies or opponents. Moving on to the third hero type, we've got supporters. Supporters strengthen their allies. They excel in every mode, but rely on others to deal damage. So you're not going to look at these types of heroes and expect them to deal a lot of damage for you. You're going to want them to buff your team in any type of manner that they possibly can. Some of the buffs are different than others. If you look at Abe Lincoln, he grants a defense buff and invincibility buff to all allies. If you look at Queen Elizabeth, she increases attack speed, attack, critical damage, and critical hit chance. Ramses, similar thing. It increases attack, movement speed, accuracy, critical damage, and critical hit chance. Margaret, attack, and I also believe attack speed and critical hit damage. Louis will give a shield and increase defense. Confucius will, reduce the enemy's defense. So he's more of a debuffer in that sense. But then he also has a buff where he increases your team's attack and attack speed. Eric the Red increases attack. So, all of these heroes have some sort of use in terms of supporting your team. Tewero on the early spectrum of the game, he grants a little bit of a shield. So you're not going to look at these heroes for damage. They're not damage units. They are that thing that is going to push you into that next level of gameplay with your other heroes. Looking into the fourth hero type, we've got our area attackers. Area attackers deal damage to all enemies in large areas. They excel against squads of smaller enemies. It's strong against large squads in campaign and treasure hunt, and they're weak against enemy heroes in campaign, arena, and treasure hunt. Also potentially weak in Tesla storms. So I will point out some of these can be weak against Tesla storms, and some of them can actually still be beneficial. But your area attackers are going to be your main source of damage in this game, considering most of your enemies are, more so grouped up. It's grouped minions, grouped bosses, etc. Specifically in campaign and in treasure hunt. You're primarily going to stay away from some of these types of heroes when it comes to PvP or arena. And then obviously some as well in Tesla Storms. So some of the ones that also excel in Tesla Storms are going to be Joan of Arc, and that's because she provides an additional buff to your team. Same with Means. He provides an attack buff to your team. So some of those are going to excel. And then in terms of damage, you have Kin. If his flying sword is on that Tesla boss, it's going to deal a lot of damage. Same thing with Van Gogh. Edison, his attack speed buff to himself, he ends up doing a ton of damage to that purple boss. And then you look at a couple of others like Leonidas. Leonidas is the prime example as to why that area attacker is weak against Tesla Storms. He only does AoE damage. He has a little bit of a stun with him as well later on, but the stun doesn't work against the boss. So you're really going to be doing less damage to that boss if you're using somebody like Leonidas. Somebody like Pythagoras is another example, like Kin, like Means, like Edison, Van Gogh, and Joan of Arc. He can excel against that Tesla boss because if his thing is flying, if his triangle is flying and it's moving all across the boss, he's going to be doing a lot of damage to that boss as well. So moving on to the next, and I believe it's the 5th hero type, we've got our Manipulators. Manipulators weaken and control enemies. Each has a special purpose. Some are strong against heroes. Others are strong against large squads. Strong against campaign, arena, and treasure hunt. Weak against Tesla Storms. So these are weak against Tesla Storms because typically debuffs do not work against the Tesla boss. So if you're looking at somebody like a mind control hero like Cleopatra, Cleopatra actually buffs the enemy boss. Mind control does not work and is not it does not work against the Tesla boss. And if you look at it, enemy units under Cleopatra's control gain 35% attack speed and 106% of Cleopatra's attack. So if you look at that, the Tesla boss is going to get a massive buff from somebody like Cleopatra. The other person they'll get a buff with, Jane Austen. Now, these heroes absolutely excel at different areas in different game modes. For example, PvP, a lot of people use Jane Austen. It makes the PvP battles a 6v4 in favor of yourself, right? It's like you add another hero onto your side of the battlefield. But so manipulators are going to be your debuffers. They're going to be your control units, crowd control, stunners, mind control units. They're also going to be those debuffers. They're going to reduce accuracy. So Ben Franklin and Napoleon are great examples of that. Our newer, addition to the game, Bessie, is also an example of that. But then you have stunners like Beethoven, or you have completely, here's another example of accuracy debuffs. So a lot of these are going to be accuracy type debuffs. The others are going to be reducing defense, things of that nature. So you're typically going to have, a type of support or manipulative unit in your team if you are making a synergistic type of team comp. But some of these heroes have dual abilities, and so you're going to be using one for multiple types of hero types versus of these specific categories that they have listed in the filters. So moving on, we've got our healers. Healers are absolutely crucial. Healers heal their allies. They excel in every mode, but rely on others to deal damage. As it says, these are not your damage dealers. These are also going to be part of your support group. They are going to be making sure that your team is top heavy on HP and making sure that they're still able to stay up and dish damage. So what do we get from all this? Well, you're going to be using different types of heroes in the game. You're going to want to use a mix of all types depending on what mode or what battle you're fighting. And then in addition to that, we will jump into our next video, and it will be detailing formations. So I will kind of show you guys how to, build a proper team, whether on an early game level, on a mid game level, or an end game level. So how to build a proper team against specific areas and specific modes, and what to look out for, what not to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Please leave a like and subscribe.